What's up, guys? Dr. D here. Today I'm going to do a lesson tutorial video on advanced mixing, more advanced editing. I'm going to do a lesson on advanced editing and session setup for a recording we did in one of my music audio production classes. And this session was kind of a hurried thing we did, and we had some students playing the instruments on a song that they just recently heard for the first time. So we only got 2 takes in, so it's performance-wise, like there's a lot of editing that we can do to kind of clean things up. So it's a perfect example to kind of go over editing processes and approaches to kind of cleaning up rhythmic mistakes and patching in different sections of drum parts and whatever to kind of make the performance more flawless. So that's what we're going to get into today, and let's go ahead and start doing it. So I've got the Pro Tools session open. I've got my looking at the routing in the mix session here, mix window. We have our sends up here that were being used for headphone monitors. So what I'm going to do is, since we're not recording anymore, not in need of any headphone monitoring, I'm going to remove all these sends. So basically, to do that, I'm just going to select every track that has these sends on it, and I'm going to do Option Shift and go ahead and click on the left corner of this and choose No Send. So it's basically just removing the sends on all of these, even the play along scratch track. Cool. Now, as far as the click track goes, I'm not going to really need my click track anymore because I'm going to be looking at the grid. So don't need the click track anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and right click and hide and make inactive right there on the nameplate. And that's how you can kind of like hide and make a track inactive. So same thing over here. I've got these 2 drum monitor and bass monitor tracks, auxiliary inputs that we're using for monitoring. I'm going to go ahead and hide and make those inactive. Okay, cool. Another track I don't need is the talkback. That is basically me cueing the musicians in the headphones as they're playing on section changes. So it's something that we don't want really in our mix at all. So I'm going to right click, hide, make that inactive. Okay, cool. So before I get into routing, I want to maybe do some editing stuff. I could set up routing first, and maybe I do that just for educational purposes and whatnot, but I don't necessarily need to, like, when I'm doing all this editing work, I don't necessarily need to have like sums and effects returns and stuff like that just yet. So we'll see how this goes, what I flow into here. Okay, cool. So the next thing I want to do is create groups, and track groups are really useful for editing multiple sounds at the same time. So first of all, we've got the entire drum kit here. 2 kick drum mics, 2 snare drum mics, hi-hat, floor tom, rack tom, 2 overheads, and a room mic. So we have like 10 tracks here just on the drums. So when I edit the drums, I need to edit, like, if I'm going to steal a section from the chorus and put it on another chorus or something like that, I'm going to need to do that flawlessly across every single drum track, because if I leave one out or don't click on something or move something around and the drum tracks are out of sync with each other, it's a kind of a big problem. So I'm going to select all the drums in the group here, well, all the drums in that drum family, and I'm going to go over to, actually I'm just going to select those and then use the command key, Command G, to create a new group. You can also go up the track group and create a new group there, but more or less Command G, when you've selected all those tracks, will create a group, and it's got all the drums in it already. So I can go ahead and click, maybe call it drums there. So that's the group name, call it drums, and then click OK. Cool. So one of the things you noticed is over here in the groups column, now there's drums there, and when I select drums, you can kind of see this color bar going across all the drums right there, and this is kind of highlighted right here. And basically now whatever I do to one of the drum tracks happens to all of the drum tracks. So like I said, if I need to rob or kind of copy and paste a section of a drum part or measure of a drum part and fit it over to another section of the song, I can do that. Okay, cool. So that's going to be super clutch for editing drums. I have 2 bass tracks. I have bass DI and bass amp. So depending on how I combine those 2 things, I want to edit them at the same time as well in the same way. So what I'm going to do is select both of those bass tracks, Command G. This is the bass group, name it bass. It's got the 2 bass things in it. Good to go. Cool. All right, sweet. So another thing is you might necessarily not want to do this or whatever, but I also could come in here and I could change the names of these instruments because KF, like, I guess that's clear that that's kick front, but you know, if you were more used to seeing kick front, you could rename these, and that's something I might do. Now, another thing about renaming tracks or naming tracks in the first place is when you open up the first track and you rename it, you could click with the mouse next and then type in the next one, right? I could click next and then I can call this one kick beater, kick back or whatever. Or I could use the keyboard shortcut and not touch the mouse at all, where I use Command Enter, and that takes me to the next track. So that can be snare top, Command Enter, snare bottom. There we go. Command Enter. What do we got? Hi-hats. Cool, hi-hat. Command Enter. Okay, well, hi-hat's fine. Let's skip that. Next. Oh, God. Hi-hat 02. What was it? 0.02. Okay, so it won't let you rename it something that it already is. So hi-hat is fine. Floor tom's fine, rack tom, overheads. I might take the O2 off just because it's a little hard to understand. But anyway, this is, once again, a little bit probably too detailed. So I'm just going to leave it alone. I think the track names are fine. So this RM, that's room, just to know that's the room mic. Okay, cool. All right, sweet. So let's keep that simple. Go with that. That's decent naming. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go over here to my edit window and I'm going to set up my grid. So over here in the very top left corner, there's several selections for how the grid kind of functions and, you know, activities that the grid does. But more or less the 2 that you kind of need to pay attention to are slip mode and grid mode. So when you're in grid mode, basically your cursor will slap into the grid. So it's kind of doing that there. Let's go over here to my grid, and where it says grid right here, I can disable the grid by clicking on this, basically hide it, or I can show the grid. And that's going to be where things slap into the grid a little bit better. There we go. Yep. So I can set my grid to be measures or bars or half notes, depending on what I want to see. So just to make sure everything's lined up, I'm gonna go over here to half notes and zoom in to where things happen and make sure that my sounds kind of line up with the grid in different places. So it looks like everything's on the grid as I kind of scan around here from beginning to end. I'm seeing section changes on the grid. So as I edit, if I'm using grid mode, it's really easy for me to select like a 4-bar section. So having the grid dialed is important. You can show the grid or hide the grid up here where it says grid. If you click on the note, you can set the duration of the grid. There we go. That's a little bit better going from measures. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. So I got measures there. Yeah, so another thing is make sure that you're in bars and beats mode. If you recorded something to the grid, you're going to be wanting to see in your time counter, you know, bars and beats, measures and quarter notes and stuff like that. So over here, if you are in minutes and seconds or time code or some other thing other than bars and beats, you click on this little drop down arrow and you can select bars and beats. So that's pretty important. My metronome setting is consistently 1 30. If I needed to alter my metronome for some reason, you double click on that little red diamond right there in the tempo lane, and that's where you can change that, but that's more something you set up before the recording session. Cool. All right. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into this editing stuff. So I'm going to have to kind of listen through each of these sections and decide like if there's any mistakes that I need to correct, and how I might solve those solutions. So more or less, let me just talk about the theory, and I'll probably do some of this and demo it, but more or less I'm going to start from the beginning and just kind of listen, see how things are going. That sounds pretty darn good right there. So yeah, don't see any problems with that first measure or the first section. Okay, here we go into the first verse. So I'm hearing a little bit of timing issues going on there. Just I might turn the metronome on back actually, and listen to this with the metronome. I could also add more grid lines, and I could look and see where the notes are and how they're lined up or not lined up to the grid. But maybe I think I might keep that metronome, re-enable that metronome so I could hear it and use that as kind of an aural marker rather than having to look at lines and stuff. So to re-enable a track that you've hid, basically over here in your tracks list, these are all the tracks, and the ones that are grayed out here, those are the ones that are hidden, right? So if you want your click track back, you click over here on it. I think you can click on that dot. There it goes. It comes back. It's still kind of grayed out, so I might need to click on it and right click on it and choose make active, and now that click track's back in my mix. So I'm seeing, it seems like the drums are pretty close to being in time. They might drift a little bit behind the beat. You can kind of see here with the transients of the overhead mic. You can kind of see when things are slightly behind the grid. The bass is a little bit more kind of off and on the grid. It seems like things are shifting and getting behind the beat, kind of like right here you can see, and over here. So I'm gonna make sure my drum or my bass group is selected so I can edit both of the bass tracks. But I'm gonna kind of look around here. So it seems like things are behind the beat. So I'm looking for when things get behind the beat. So it starts out right here on the verse on time, but it drifts a little bit kind of immediately about right there. And then we're, slightly behind the beat, get a little bit slightly more behind the beat, but it's consistently behind the beat until roughly kind of in here somewhere. So let's see here, kind of gets back on track about there. So I can approach this two different ways. I can maybe find a section of the chorus where he plays, or whoever played bass plays kind of more on the beat, and if I have a complete cycle of that chord progression, that might be something I could cut or copy and paste on the other sections. So let me just do that. So that's pretty much in time. So phrase starts right here. I'm listening for the musical phrase of the chord progression. It's kind of a cycle of the chords. Okay, let's see what the next one sounds like. Oh, it's a little sloppy there. I might not harvest that one. Let's go back to the beginning. So first of all, I think this note right here, this is in time, starting here, but I think the note is wrong. See how it's like, da-na. It's kind of like shifts for a second. But what I could do is I could copy this, Command C, put it right here, Command C. So right there, another thing. So kind of missed that note, that second note right there. So anyway, I could maybe steal that, copy, paste. I'm doing this, I want to make this loop that I'm about to copy and put somewhere else. I want to make it perfect first. If I'm going to like copy and paste a bunch of like loops of something, it's got to be perfect, because you don't want to get a bad copy of something that's not off, because then you have to go and fix it 10 different ways. So anyway, before you copy and paste and take a section of a song and move it somewhere, or a performance of an instrument, it's good to just make sure it's perfect. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of that right now. Okay, cool. Yeah, that whole section right there, I'm pretty good with. Now, a couple finishing touches here. Like I said, I want it to be perfect, and it's not quite on the beat perfectly. So I can see how it's drifted just slightly behind the beat, but that's where the drums are. I might leave it as is. Let's look and see where I'm going to put this. I'm going to go back to bar mode here, so it's a little bit less grid lines. But it looks like I'm going to be putting this thing, if I zoom out, I'm going to be putting this like up here somewhere. So at this point, the drums are on time pretty well, and the drums get a little bit behind the beat and shift a bit as well. So tough to say. I might just kind of keep it as is. But before I copy this thing, I want to make sure that I fix any edits, basically put crossfades into these edits. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back into slip mode. So up here, I'm going to go to slip mode. I'm going to get really close here to my little edits, and I'm going to make sure that I have my crossfades put in so that there's no cracks or pops. Wherever you make an edit on a track, it's a good idea to put a little crossfade in there so you don't experience like a crack or pop or anything, because that will sometimes happen in your mix. So let's see where I'm at. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3. So this whole section right here. Go back into grid mode, and I'm gonna copy that. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 measures here. So I go 4 measures up, takes me right to the beginning of the song. Boom. All right, let's see how this sounds. Okay, cool. So, you know, close-ish. Here's another trick that we can use. So let's zoom in here. So I see the drums. You can see that there's kind of like the artifacts from the previous take of the bass hits right here. So I'm going to kind of like, I'm going to turn off grid mode just for a short bit, put a little fade in there, and I'm going to make some subtle adjustments of the positioning of these notes to get them a little bit more in line with the drums. So it looks like I'm back on track here with the drums. It drifts a little bit right here. I'm going to start putting some incisions in front of the transients. So I put one there. I can see that I'm ahead of the beat, ahead of the beat, ahead of the beat. Get back to the beat right around here. So go ahead and put an incision there. I'm going to hold shift and select the areas of the waveform and try to like get it a little bit closer to where the drum transients are. It's never going to be perfect unless you go crazy and do this for days and hours, but you can at least kind of get things a little bit closer. Let's see here. So yeah, same thing here. These are a little bit ahead until this point, or a little bit behind. Put an incision there, select these, shift that waveform track a little bit further up, and try to mend where I have you know, edits happening. So you can kind of see here when I kind of go one direction, oh, there's the transient that's not in time, and then there's, you know, the back end of that note. So I'm trying to find a spot where I can do a crossfade and not do it right over like a ghost transient that I might accidentally reintroduce. So I'm kind of being mindful of that, like right here, that looks good, but there's the note right there, so maybe I want to go a little bit closer to there, do my crossfade. So because sometimes what you can do on accident is like, here's a crossfade, you know, happening right here, but you know, if I zoom in a bit, you can see, look, there's like a note popping up out of nowhere, a ghosted note from the previous take. So it might make more sense for me to go a little bit further in there and do my crossfade so that I'm not hearing that ghosted transient. Okay, cool. So, and then I listen back to it. Okay, so I'm probably gonna go ahead and fix the drums here as well. It's gonna be a struggle to just kind of keep moving one thing and fixing one thing and not fixing the other. So I'm gonna kind of demo the entire kind of process of aligning things up with the grid. So let's start with our bass. Our bass is on the grid. It's doing pretty good. Let me add some more grid lines so we can see more of the notes. Come on now. Where's the grid lines at? There it is. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I can see these are eighth notes now, and I can see like every single note. Yeah, some of these drum parts are getting behind the beat pretty far over here. When do they drift back in time? Maybe not ever. Here we go. There we go. It's back in time right about around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my group to be the drum group. And actually, I might do this to the drums. Man, I'm doing it to the drums. A lot to do. So I'm going to stay here. Let's see. I'm going to put a incision right there. That's on the drums. Command E to put a little split there. I'm looking for when I get back to the beat. I'm behind the beat, behind the beat, behind the beat, behind the beat. Getting a little bit better, but still behind the beat. Still behind the beat. Behind the beat, behind the beat, behind the beat. Behind the beat, on the beat right here somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to put a cut right there, put it right in front of the transient, Command E, and basically scooch back to the transient back to the line, back to the grid line. So things are a little bit more in time here. Looking across, gets a little ahead of the beat. If there's any like outliers, like notes that are just like way off, like here's a couple right here, I can do this. I can drag across this area of the waveform, Command E, and it puts splits on either side of that edit, and then I can scooch up a little bit. And look, here's another, you know, issue here with a transient that's kind of ghosted here. So I might do something like that. Actually, let me give myself a crossfade instead of these. I can delete these fades. You can kind of see when I select them with the grabber tool, I can select the entire fade area, and if I hit delete, I can basically get rid of the previous fade, and then I can come in here and put my own fade that's in the right spot. Okay, so I kind of fixed that. Let me mend these two together. Okay, cool. That's on the grid line. Here's a little crossfades everywhere. Here's a little crossfade right here. Right there. And now my drums are a little bit more on the grid here. Oop, looks like it's getting ahead of the beat now. Over here. Ahead of the beat, ahead of the beat, ahead of the beat, ahead of the beat, ahead of the beat. On the beat right here. Okay, cool. Looks like it starts to drift roundabouts here. Put another, oopsie, that should have been, there we go. If you hit the E key, that's kind of a weird thing that happens. Whatever group you're on, it's going to focus the screen view on only that group. So sometimes, like, you know, say you have like one track selected and you accidentally hit the E key, it like blows that up to be the size of the screen. So don't freak out. That's when you accidentally hit E instead of Command E when you're making an edit. But that is a way of, you know, basically blowing up whatever the group is that you've selected, whether that's drums or bass. That's a way of like, you know, focusing in on just that for editing purposes. So anyway, it happens sometimes, but really what I meant to do was Command E. Okay, cool. Command E, because I'm ahead of the beat, head of the beat, head of the beat, head of the beat. Where do I get back on the beat? Roundabouts here, roundabouts there. Yeah, how about right here? I'll do it in between the transients. I'm looking across all the transients here, trying to find where I'm not seeing like a transient, because I want to make my edits kind of as far as I can from the transients. Command E, split that, and then maybe trim the back end of this bad boy off a little bit and scooch it back a little bit more in the ballpark of the beat. Looking across here, this one drifts a little bit here, kind of back on there. Maybe do a little edit here through there. Command E, shift it back a little bit. Okay, a little bit better. Okay, still ahead of the beat slightly here, and a little bit more over here. Looks like I could probably maybe jump in right here through there and just do a little scooch back. So yeah, and then of course come by and repair things with a crossfade that's carefully placed, not where there's a transient sound hitting, because the crossfade basically fades one track in while the other track's fading out, or fading out and then one's fading in. So if there's like one fading out but there's a giant transient hitting, you'll still hear some of it when the other track's fading in. So I've got these edits everywhere. Here's another quick way of doing bulk or global edits of global fades. So for instance, like here's 2 points right here where I've edited, and this could be like 2 points or like 50 places where I've put edits. So if I select across that area and I use Command F, this is the batch fades window, and I can set the time length for fades. So it's like 10 milliseconds for a crossfade, 20 milliseconds for fades in and fades out. So I can change the angle of these things or whatever I need. And then if I click OK, it applies that to the entire selected area. So for instance, if you went and edited like 1,000 edits like across this entire thing for like an hour, which you might end up doing, you could at the end go through here, select everything, and just do batch fades across every single little edit, and that saves you a little bit of time. So either or, I'm just demonstrating that. So let me zoom in here, put a little fade in here. Sometimes I like to control the fade so I can kind of check my work. But yeah, so I went through and I'm fixing the drums. This is the first verse. Now that I've fixed the drums, I need to look at the bass and make sure the bass is lined up with the drums. It's drums and bass. I'm looking at the transients here. Maybe I boost the transients up a little bit with the buttons up here. Up here, this is the basically expands the horizontal view of the waveform, so you can kind of see it a little bit better. So I'm kind of looking around to see if and when the bass is off from the drums. Looks like I got a little bit of bass off here. As far as that, I have drums as well, so maybe I fix the drums first. So go to the drums group, right here to there. Go ahead, Command E, shift it a little bit further up there. Okay, cool, maybe that, and then I can do a batch fade, Command F, enter, boom. So you see how fast that is? I just Command F for fade, batch, enter for go, and then I can pop back over here to the drums, or to the bass, and let's see here, fix the bass. So the bass is good there. From here it's behind the beat pretty far. There it gets back to it. So I'm gonna do a little that, and then fade and fade. Okay, cool. So this is gonna go on and on and on and on. So I'm not gonna just sit here and do this for like 3 hours, but this is your process for time correction. If you want things to be kind of in time and stay with the metronome, or maybe there's just like a few portions, for a few parts of the song where the time drifts a little bit further than you're comfortable with, you can get in here and do this type of surgical time correction stuff in this manner. There's a tool called Beat Detective that Pro Tools has built into it. And it's kind of similar to like what Logic and Ableton do as far as quantizing, or Logic calls it warping. No, that's Ableton. Anyway, yeah, so Logic and Ableton both have like a really good working correction thing for automating. Basically, you can, batch smash things to the grid. So quantizing things to the grid. Now Pro Tools' Beat Detective isn't really on par with that. It's almost easier just to do it manually because, I don't know, they just haven't gotten that dialed yet, not like the other DAWs have. So it's not as easy. So I end up in Pro Tools just doing this stuff manually most of the time. So there's several instances where you can come in here and fix these beats and look across the song and find where things are ahead or behind the grid. You can go about it and kind of do that manner. Okay, so let me switch gears and show you a couple other processes, not to linger on that for too long, but if you're doing this assignment, you probably want to go through and fix the entire thing. But before you get too crazy with it, there was a couple instances I noticed earlier when I listened to this one time that, let's see here, on the bridge section, or maybe it was the second verse, there's a few times where the drums didn't switch over to a halftime feel or a lighter feel for a section of the song. So I think the chorus here, the verse, was all good. We fixed most of that. And then on to the chorus 2. Okay, cool. Drums pattern was there, is good. Okay. Okay, cool. So that sounds all right. Let's go to the bridge. I think this is where it happens. So this is supposed to be like a slower section. So aesthetically, this is kind of subjective, like whether you like a double time drum pattern there. Or maybe you want it to, come out of that into because it's fast here. Kind of a dance beat. Okay, and then over here on chorus out, it's kind of the same thing. The dance beat continues. I think that might have been an accidental thing. So what I might do is find where the drums settle in a bit. There we go, right there. So the drums kind of kick into a ride pattern halftime feel, which was happening over here in the beginning of the song. So I kind of like what it's doing here out, but I'm not a fan of the double time continuing, that kind of disco beat thing happening here. So what I'm going to try to do is copy the intro drum part and put it over here on the chorus out. And maybe even do it on the bridge. Aesthetically, that's kind of just what I'm feeling. Like I said, it's subjective, so do whatever you think sounds good, but I'm going to change my grid to bars so I can see less of the grid lines. I'm going to zoom in here to where things start and go back to grid mode. And let's see here. Like I said, I want to make sure I'm copying something that's in time, so I'm going to do a quick little check. Seems in time. That's a little head right there. Okay, so everything's pretty good. It starts drifting about around here. So I'm going to see if I can do a quick little fix of that. Let me go back to the quarter notes, zoom in a bit. So a little bit of drifting right there. I'm ahead of the beat. Still drifted ahead. Kind of drifting ahead. Okay, most of that. So back out of grid mode into slip mode. I'm going to scooch things from here back. It's ahead of the beat slightly. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that for now. Command E, zoom in a bit more so I can see a little bit closer what's up. Scooch back a little bit. Repair the first part maybe with a fade. Oh, you see that little thing right there? I probably don't want that. That's the ghost transient from the other take. So shifted that over so I'm not doing that. looking at my grid lines. I'm on the grid pretty close, pretty close. Most of this is pretty close, maybe slightly ahead or behind. Shifting a bit, not bad though. A little bit right here is a little bit behind. Maybe another one, just a little tap right here, a little push. Maybe a little push right there too. All right, cool. So, you know, once again, this is really detailed and almost anal, but it's gonna probably sound better in the end. So, okay, cool. So, all right, that was fine. We're starting here. Listening, I soloed the drums here, so I'm listening to the drums. Oh, ahead of the beat right there pretty drastically. Let me get in there. If you hear little spots where things get drifted too far from your comfort zone, good thing to do is just fix them. So, well, drifting. Most of this is drifting a little bit ahead of the beat. Going to find where it is. Let me add another grid line too so I can see it a little bit better with the eighth notes. There we go. So probably starts right here, starts happening. So I'm gonna go right here in front of this transient. Command E, and I'm gonna scooch everything back. Oh wow, some of these are worse than others. Let's go for here, just to start. I'm gonna trim a little bit because I'm gonna scoot it back. Start with that. Okay, these are in time. Let's fix the fade. Then I'm looking over here, and these two are ahead of the beat right there. So I'm gonna do a little Command E right there. Scooch that back. Scooch this over here. Crossfade. Crossfade. Ahead of the beat pretty drastically right in here. Okay, cool. So maybe from there to there. Command E. Let's shift that back a little bit. Fix the fade. And I think I can live with that. So you don't really notice it when you play it back. It just sounds perfect. Okay, I'm gonna go back into grid mode here. Change my grid pattern to a larger increment. Maybe, yeah, let's go with quarter notes, whole notes. Okay, sweet. So let's find where things start right here. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is 8. Boom. Okay, sweet. So I'm gonna cut that. That's basically 2, 4-bar phrases. Command C. I'm gonna drop over here to where my chorus, my bridge. After my bridge, it was my chorus out. Okay, cool. So there I am on chorus out. I'm gonna hit paste and see where it goes. Okay, cool. So let's listen to it. Okay, sounds okay. Let's get the bass in there. Okay, well, we're going back into the dance beat there. Okay, so that's where I want to probably add more. So what I can do is, so that was all good. It was right here where the edit ended that it goes into this dance beat that I didn't like. So here's what I could try. I'm gonna untrim the previous take because the previous take kept going with that same pattern, I believe. So I'm gonna take the previous take and I'm just gonna untrim it for 4 bars and see what happens. Okay, cool. I'm gonna continue that. And then I'm pretty good there. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna clean it up, go into slip mode, zoom into where my edits happen. Whoa, see how far ahead of the beat we are there? Okay, a little crossfade, but I think I can fix that. Grid mode change, eighth notes. Let's see where we're at. Head of the beat, pretty far ahead of the beat. Most of this, head of the beat, way ahead of the beat, ahead of the beat, ahead of the beat, head of the beat, head of the beat. Starting to get back to the beat somewhere around the end of the song, maybe. Oops. Okay, cool. So it's consistently ahead of the beat pretty much through the rest of the song. And we'll probably do a fade out. I'm just gonna scooch this whole entire section back a little bit. It's just all ahead of the beat. So if I do that, hopefully drummer's laying back a bit. Okay. Okay. Now another thing I'm noticing is the pedal, like the bass is pedaling C here and the chords are changing. So different chords than what's going on in the song, but it gets back to it here. So I might fly in the bass part from here through the rest of the song, or find a loop somewhere where it's maybe in time. Maybe I just do that. Find the chorus over here. So drum, bass are pretty close. Here's one complete phrase. Okay, so that changes. Let's take the bass and scooch these back a bit. 'Cause now that we fixed the drums and the drums are on the grid, the bass is now not on the grid. So looks like we got to do a little bit of that. We'll move that around there. Let's do a cut right here. Move that. Mend that with the crossfade. Come on, there we go. Crossfade. Getting there, looking gooder. This one could use a little shift. Okay, fix that. Yeah, we'll put it right there. This one's a little too far out for me. Gets back right there. Scoochy boochies. And fix the edits. Okay, cool. Now, let's get back to where we were. I'm looking for a complete pass of the bass line. Okay, cool. So there's a whole complete section of the bass that I think is a keeper. Oh gosh. Oh, go back to slip mode here. A little accident. Let me move that there. Okay, cool. So 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right here. Okay, cool. So in grid mode, probably a larger grid. I'm gonna put my insertion point. Try to do that right there on the grid line. Let me back out a little bit and go back to here. There we go. I was holding down shift to do that from one point to the other. So that is a complete cycle of that chord progression on the bass, and it's mostly time corrected. So Command C to copy it, go back over here to my chorus out, way over here, and I'm going to throw the bass over, copy paste right there. Maybe fix that a little bit, a little edit right here, a little back, little fade, and then the back end of it where it ends, wherever that ends, can't see it, probably right here somewhere. Zoom in there and just fix the fade out, make sure it's not weird. Okay, there we go, it's a little bit better. Do a crossfade there instead. Okay, hopefully we're good to go. Let's listen to it. Timing issues, but we'll fix those, down the road. Okay, cool. So I want to show you another thing, one last thing before I kind of call it quits here and maybe go into routing mode. What you can do as well is we recorded multiple takes of the song. We did 2 takes, and you don't really see them right here. We were using playlists, which is a feature of the Pro Tools DAW, where you can record multiple takes in the same kind of time region. So the way that you use and toggle through playlist view is, first of all, you have to select like every instrument track. So I'm selecting the bass through the guitar, or bass through the drums here. If I hold down Option Shift and I go to the right side of the nameplate, you can see that there's, a first take, second take, third take. I think we actually did first take, second take. So we had 2 takes. And I can change between those takes like this, but of course, like, all my edits are gone. So I was mainly focusing on the third take. So I'm going to keep that there. But we can do something called comping, where you basically can select parts of the other take, and you can fly it into the take that you want to use. So the way that we can do that is on the track view plate, or the track view selector there. I'm going to hold down Option Shift again, click on the track view plate, and go to playlists. And now what that's going to do is it's going to show me the previous playlists underneath the one that I'm focused on. So that can basically, it's really complicated looking because it's a drum, 10 drum tracks. But basically, this is the take, the one that's at the top. This is the take that we're on, that we're editing. Now, say that there was a section where maybe in the other take, like maybe, take 1 or something, you like the drum section a little bit better, on the verse or something. You could select, maybe this is just the bass. You can select that section. I'll just do it right here so you can visually see it. I've selected, the bass. I got the bass group going. I've selected the bass, and say I like this performance of this section right here or something. I select it, and I click on this little arrow that says copy selection to target playlist. So the target playlist is the one that you're actually on, your main core playlist, and then the other secondary playlists are the other takes. So if you liked this part of the bass line, you could select that, and you could hit the arrow, and it's going to throw it up onto the take that you're actually using. So you can do this really well with like comping vocals, where you have like 8 vocal takes, and you're like finding the best words and best phrases of each one of those, and you have like, the one vocal track, and then you have like 8 of the other takes, and you can listen to them by hitting the solo button. Whether you want to solo that take, you want to solo this other take, or you want to just play the main target one. But when you find a section you like, you can highlight it, and you can hit that arrow button, and that will shift it up into the target playlist. So that was just an example, so I'm going to undo that because that's not anything I actually wanted to do. But I wanted to show you the playlist editing, comping kind of functionality of Pro Tools as well. Really complicated, like I said, when it's a bass, when it's a drum, the entire, all the drums. It's a little bit easier if you just maybe we hide that playlist here view of everything, and we just do it to the bass. So for instance, like, here's the bass, 2 bass amps, bass tracks, and I'm going to show the track playlists view, and now it's a little bit better. There's the bass, take 1, the main take, which is the third take, and then there was take the second take, and then this is the take 1, and it's just duplicates of it. But yeah, if I wanted to, I like this section right here, I can select that, hit the arrow, boom, and it throws it up into that playlist, core playlist, or what they call it, the target playlist. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so let's leave that alone. I'm gonna undo, or not undo, but Command Option Shift. Change my playlist view back to waveform so I don't see all that. And next, I'm gonna start doing some routing stuff. So say you go through this and you clean up all the stuff. Let's do some routing, at least on the drums and the bass. We have a scratch track that I'll bring in stems later 4. This is just like, you know, the guitar parts and the voice part and all that kind of stuff going on one track. So I'll leave it there as reference, but I'm going to eventually have individual tracks. So we'll get to that half of the mix later. So here we go. So first of all, I'm thinking about the groups or the families of instruments I have. I have the drums and I have the bass. Two families of instruments. Within the drum family, there's 2 kick drums and 2 snare drums. Oh, so I might treat the 2 kick drums as a group of instruments, not a group in this sense, but a group in the, you know, a family sense. And I'm going to route those to a sum track. Now, sum tracks, if you don't already know this, are kind of when you take a group or a collection of instruments and you route all those signals into one track so you can control the whole family of instruments with one fader, in addition to controlling them all individually. Nice process for mixing to have. Say you want to just put compression on the kick drum and you don't need to do it to both kick drums individually. You can do it to both kick drums as they are sent into a sum track. So way this is going to go, we're going to hold down Option Shift. We're going to select the 2 kick drums. I'm going to go to the output on the right side of these 2 tracks I've selected. I'm going to choose New Track. That's going to create a new stereo auxiliary input track. I'm going to call this track, I'm going to call it Kick Sum. Okay, cool. So here's my Kick Sum track. You can see my outputs are routed through a bus that's been named Kick Sum, and it's going to the input of the Kick Sum track. So the input's routed there, and it's all good. But check this out. If I hit solo on one of the kick drums because I want to listen to it and EQ it, I don't hear anything. Because what happened is when you solo one track, it mutes all the other tracks automatically unless you solo save the track. And if your Pro Tools version doesn't do this automatically, which I think the newer one does, you hold Command and you click on the S and it grays it out, so now you can hear the kick drum track playing through the sum. It doesn't mute it. Okay, cool. So another group or a collection of sounds I have is the 2 snare drums. I'm going to do the same thing. Select the 2 snares, Option Shift, go to the far right side and use the output. Click on the output and I'm going to choose a new track. This one's going to be called Snare Sum. And go ahead and hit create. Boom, that's there. Solo safe. Boom, that's done. Then I have the hi-hats, the rack toms, the overheads, the room. I might do a parallel compression thing down the road, but let's just keep it to this for now. Okay, cool. So the rest of the sounds are, I'm going to route everything in the drum family now to a drum sum. So that means I'm going to select the room through the hi-hats because those are just individual tracks. In addition to that, I'm going to select the snare sum and the kick sum because those are the collection, the summation of the kick and the snare, and I want those to go to the drum sum as a final, you know, place destination of all the drum sounds. So Option Shift, go to the right side of the tracks that I have selected on the room track over here. I'm going to click the output, go to new track. I'm going to call this the drum sum. And boom, you can see the outputs of all those tracks are now routed into the input of this, which is the drum sum. I'm going to solo save that. Boom. Okay, cool. Next group or collection is the basses. We got 2 bass tracks. Pretty easy. Select those, Option Shift, go to the output, new track. This one is the bass sum. Hit enter. Cool. There it is right there. Command click, solo save. Sweet. Got my scratch track. That's there too. Click track is there as well. Okay, sweet. So now continuing that process, I want to have all of the individual sum tracks routed to a kind of final sum, which I like to call the submix. And it's something I'll have in addition to a master fader. So let's think here. We've got 2 kick and we got snares and kicks going into the drum sum as far as the rest of the drums go. Yeah. We also have the 2 basses going into the bass sum. And then I have the scratch track. So at this point, I need to select the scratch track, the bass sum, the drum sum, because that's kind of the final destination of those families of instruments. I'm going to do the same deal where I hold Option Shift, go to the furthest right selected track, go to the output, new track, and this one's going to be called submix. All right, there's a submix track right there. Submix track is functioning different in my eyes to sum tracks. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but I want it to be a different color so I can, not mix it up with my individual families of instruments. So I'm going to double click on the color bar down there. I'm going to make it red. This click track, I'm going to probably change the color of that too. I don't know, it's the same color. So how about that one is, that one's green. Click track. Okay, cool. So maybe get the click track out of the way so I'm not mixing it up with the final collection of sums and stuff on the right side. Now I have a submix. Okay, cool. So once again, it's a track that needs to be solo saved. All right, now when I play the track, I hear everything coming through the submix. Like I said, in addition to the submix, the final destination of the signals is going to be the master fader. So it's just creating a new track. So Command Shift N, new track. If I hold down Command, I can change, and use the arrow key, I can change through the different track types. So I can hold down Command, use down arrow until I hit master fader, and then use the left arrow to switch between stereo and mono. So one stereo, master fader, it's got to be stereo. Hit create. There's my master fader. It's the final destination. Kind of like where the submix goes after that before it hits your speakers. And I can see the levels of everything. Okay, cool. So pretty good routing. The next thing I'm not going to create FX sends and returns quite yet in this video. At this point, what I want you folks to do is go through and edit and fix all the time corrections across this thing. Set up the routing kind of as we did here, and then on phase 2, mix day number 2, I'm going to bring in the scratch, non-scratch tracks, the actual stems of the guitar parts and voice parts, and then we're going to do some additional sum tracks, and in addition to that, we're going to make effects return tracks. So effects return tracks are going to be same deal, right? I create a new track, right? And I route signal into this new track, and I just put like a reverb on it or something. So it's an effects return track. But the way that I'm going to use it is it's going to be, I have the original signal of whatever it is, say it's a drum set or something. Now I want that drum set to go into a reverb track so that it's, I'm not putting reverb on my drum set mix. I'm putting it on a track in parallel. So that's an effects return track, they call it. And the way that you get the signal to kind of go out of that signal and that main track and duplicate and go to the parallel track is through a send. So similarly to reverb and other effects returns, I might do a drum parallel compression track where I really squash with a compressor the overhead microphones so that the cymbals are kind of like a big wall of sound kind of thing and easy to manage with a compressor and move up and down. It's just an additional level of cymbal noise intensity. So sometimes you do that and you add the kick and the snare to make it more boomy, but I'm going to just do it with the 2 drum overheads. Okay, so I've got the drum overheads and I got the room mic too. I'm going to hold Option and Shift, and I'm going to go to the first, I'm going to go to the first send, or maybe I'm going to go to the last send here because I want my reverb sends to be above there. So wherever you put this, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to put mine in the last send slot. So it's out of the way of other sends that I want to go across the board with, like reverb. So last send slot there, I'm going to choose a new track. I'm going to call this drum parallel. So drum with 2 capital I's. Hit create. And I'm going to solo safe it, and then I need to route the output of that to go into the drum sum. So I'm going to go to track here, find the drum sum on the output, and now the signal is going into the drum sum. So this is a drum effect. So similar to what I was saying, I'm going to put like a compressor on it. I'll just use the bomb factor 76 because you all got that. I'm going to expose the view of the fader of the send. So that's command clicking on the very left edge there where that arrow is, and that expands that view. There's my faders that feed the signal into the Bomb Factory 76 plugin, which I turned up quite a bit and squashed. And let's check this out. So I get a little compression going, or a lot of compression going. Okay, so let me just demonstrate what this sounds like. Here's the drum group selected. All the drums are selected. I'm going to turn that drum parallel track down. So there's the drums. Mute that annoying click track. Not hearing that for some reason. Drum HP. That's not what I'm looking for. I think my output went to the wrong place. Drum sum. Oh, that's drum probably monitor. Okay, drum sum. There we go. That's why I wasn't hearing anything. You hear that? And if I just want cymbal sounds, I might put an EQ that filters out the low frequencies before that. So like I don't want kick drum, maybe I just want cymbal sounds, so I might kind of roll out everything under like 600 hertz or something. And now I've got this kind of like saturated cymbal sound that's going on. So that's drum parallel compression. You can use it as a tool to kind of bring in the cymbal room sounds, make it a little bit more crispier. Anyway, so that's kind of a cool thing to do. Yeah, so I think that's probably enough for week 1 here. I want you to go through and edit and clean this up. There's lots of time corrections that need to happen, or could happen, that you can spend hours doing. And also, this is something that if you ever got an internship at a studio and they were letting you do work on on mixing, you're probably going to start out doing stuff like this, where you're just going through and meticulously fixing time and pitch correction stuff. That takes a while, but you need to have those kind of keyboard mouse skills to like be able to get in there and fix the thing and scooch it around and fix it and put your fades in there, like, and get fast at it, and have all the keyboard shortcuts under your fingers. Yeah, it's a really good skill to have if you're gonna try to get an internship too. So awesome. All right, we'll call it there for today. That's a long video, but it'll be helpful for my class and whoever else wants to watch this as well. So thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers. Peace out.